After the crash, my 7-year-old daughter needed emergency surgery. My in-laws said, "Sign over the house and the company, and we will pay." I signed every page. They thought they had won. Then their lawyer looked down at the documents and turned pale. The hospital conference room smelled like bleach, stale coffee, and the kind of fear that leaves a metallic taste in your mouth. It was a small room with 2 plastic chairs, a worn table, and a framed beach photo that was probably meant to calm people down, but it only felt insulting. Monica and Derek sat across from me like they were waiting for a business appointment, not sitting in a hospital after losing their son. Madison was there too, beside them, checking her phone like this whole nightmare was only a minor inconvenience. A man in a suit sat at the end of the table with a thick folder. He slid the papers toward me and clicked his pen like we were finishing some normal deal. I signed quickly because the clock on the wall felt louder than it should have. Someone had already said the words "deposit required." Limited window, best chance. My daughter was in a hospital bed down the hall, and my whole world had narrowed to one thing: surgery. Monica watched every signature like it was a promise she had been waiting to collect. When I finished, she gathered the papers with quiet satisfaction. Derek let out a slow breath. Madison finally looked up and smiled. I stared at the ink drying under my name and thought, this is insane. But I had signed anyway. Earlier that same day, I did not know life could split open so fast. I only knew there had been an accident. I remember the hospital doors opening and closing, like lungs. I remember the doctor telling me that my husband, Liam, did not survive. He did not say dead at first. They rarely do. Then he said my daughter's name, Zoe, and that pulled me back into my body. She was alive, stable, but badly hurt. I found her surrounded by machines, so small in that bed that it made my chest ache. I touched her hand and promised her silently that I had her. Then the doctor explained the 2 treatment options. The better one required a large deposit. I tried to transfer the money myself, but every account was locked. On paper, we had money. In real life, we had a sealed door and a clock that would not stop. I did not cry then because there was no time for that. That was when Monica and Derek arrived. At first, they looked solemn, the way people look when they know they are supposed to. Monica reached toward my shoulder with that light little gesture people use when they want credit for comfort without offering any. Derek gave one tight nod, as if grief were a meeting, and he had just heard the agenda. Madison walked in behind them, eyes a little puffy, hair still perfect, phone in her hand. They asked where Zoe was. They asked what the doctor had said. They told me this was terrible, and that we would get through it. The words sounded right, so at first I believed them. I turned to them, exhausted and desperate, and asked the most obvious question in the world. Could they cover the deposit until I could unlock everything and pay them back? I only needed Zoe and surgery. I expected an immediate yes. They had money. They were comfortable. This was their granddaughter. Monica did not say yes. She did not say no either. She made a careful face and said we should not rush. Derek leaned in and said they needed to think. Madison stayed quiet, watching me with cool interest. I waited, because I had no choice. 30 minutes passed, then 40, then an hour. I sat by Zoe's bed and listened to the machines around her. I tried the bank again. Nothing changed. Then Monica came back with a man in a suit and a folder. She told me to come with them. In the small room, the folder opened and Monica's voice turned soft and smooth. She said they would pay, but I had to sign first. I looked down at the papers. They were not about a hospital bill. They were about ownership, control, transfer, and giving up any claim. In plain words, sign here and the house becomes theirs. Sign here and the company becomes theirs. I whispered that this was their granddaughter, and they were not lending me money. They were taking everything Liam built. Monica smiled and called it paperwork. I stepped out and called a lawyer friend. The answer came fast. Do not sign. It is bad. But I looked at the clock, thought of Zoe's hand in mine, went back into that room, and asked one question. If I signed right away, would the deposit move right away? Monica said yes. So, I signed. People looking in from the outside probably thought I signed in panic, like a desperate woman giving away her life with a shaking hand and a prayer. I let them think that. Monica and Derek believed they had taken the house and the company in one clean move. What they did not understand was that the trap had not started in that hospital room. It had started years earlier. Liam had always been easy to underestimate. He was not loud. He did not walk into a room and pull all the attention toward himself. He just showed up every day, worked hard, and built things slowly. That was one of the first things I loved about him. He listened more than he spoke. He noticed small details. He remembered what made me laugh. When I first met Monica and Derek, I thought they were polished, proper people. Monica had flawless manners and a careful smile that never quite reached her eyes. Derek shook my hand like he was testing me. Then Madison came into the room and everything shifted. Monica softened. Derek warmed up. Their attention snapped toward her without effort. Madison was clearly the favorite. She could do almost anything, and it was charming. Liam could bring home something impressive, and it became a joke about how serious he was. They praised Madison easily. Liam got polite dismissal. At first, I told myself it was just family texture, the kind you notice and move past. Then Zoe was born, and I saw it more clearly. In public, Monica loved being seen as the perfect grandmother. In private, everything was selective. It started with Zoe's name. Zoe is not difficult to say, but Monica kept getting it wrong and brushing it off with a laugh. She never forgot Madison's children's names, Jax and Paisley. Then came the birthday gifts. Zoe received something meant for a much younger child, while Jax and Paisley opened exactly what they had wanted. Zoe smiled too fast, too brightly, like she was already learning how to hide disappointment. Later, Monica and Derek planned a big outing for Jax and Paisley, right in front of her. When Zoe asked if she could go too, Monica acted as if the idea had never crossed her mind. I watched my daughter make herself smaller in that moment, and I never forgot it. Around that same time, Liam's company was growing. He built it carefully, and I was deeply involved in the real day-to-day work. As the business expanded, Monica and Derek started showing more interest. They spoke about family, stability, legacy. Somehow, those conversations always drifted back to Madison. Liam never gave in to them. He stayed calm, polite, and firm, even when Monica and Derek kept circling the same ideas. Madison should have security. Madison should have a stake. Our house was too big for just us. None of it came as a direct demand. It was always framed as concern, suggestion, family thinking ahead. Then, the accident happened. Liam died. Zoe survived, but barely, and Monica, Derek, and Madison finally had leverage. A month later, Zoe was physically much better. She was back at school, back to routines, back to eating cereal like it was a major life commitment. Emotionally, healing took longer. It always does. We were living in a small apartment by then. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, and a kitchen so tight it felt like the refrigerator and oven were in a territorial dispute. Still, it was ours for the moment, and Zoe was alive. The old house and Liam's company now belonged to Monica, Derek, and Madison, at least on paper. Then I saw the posts online. Madison was sharing photos from my old home. Jax and Paisley smiling on the staircase I used to vacuum. Monica in the living room I had decorated. Derek grilling in the backyard where Zoe used to chase bubbles. Captions talked about a fresh start and blessings, as if they had always belonged there. Then came photos at the company. The 3 of them standing in front of the logo like founders, smiling with employees, posing at desks. From the outside, it looked perfect. It hurt, but I did not unravel. They were celebrating too early. Once Zoe was stable, I met with my lawyer, Sienna Brooks. She had the kind of calm that makes you believe a fire could be burning nearby, and she would still have a plan. I brought company documents because I knew that business inside and out. I had worked there. I understood the finances, the structure, the truth behind the image. Sienna read quietly for a while, then stopped on one page and looked up at me. She said the company owed me an enormous amount of money. Then she asked if I had known that when I signed everything over. I said yes. She leaned back and stared at me for a second. The amount was $842,600. Monica and Derek had not just taken control of the company. They had taken on personal liability with it. If the company could not pay, they would have to pay themselves. Over the years, Liam and I had put money into the company as a loan, not a gift. That debt did not disappear when new owners stepped in. They had taken the company, and with it, they had taken what it owed me. Sienna tapped the documents and said the debt was real, documented, and fully enforceable. She told me I had not actually lost money in that deal. I had gained leverage. Hearing it out loud still felt strange, like pressing on a bruise just to confirm it was there. When Zoe was finally stable enough for me to think beyond the next hour, I told Sienna to move forward. She drafted a formal demand letter for $842,600 and sent it to Monica and Derek. They called as soon as they received it. Monica sounded furious, sharp, almost breathless with outrage. Derek was tighter, colder, but just as shaken. They called it absurd. They called it a scam. They acted like I had invented the debt out of thin air. I stayed calm and did not waste time arguing with them. I told them to speak to Sienna, get their own lawyer, and hung up. At that point, they still did not understand the full shape of what they had signed. They only saw the number. They only saw that I was demanding repayment. But the letter was in writing now, with a deadline. And people like Monica and Derek do not stay confused for long. They get angry. They start calculating. They look for a way to make the other person flinch first. I kept life as normal as I could for Zoe. School pickup, dinner, tea, homework, bedtime stories. The quiet routines that seem ordinary until they are the only things keeping you upright. Still, the calm felt fragile. A few days later, there was a knock on my apartment door. A man in a suit stood there holding a clipboard and a sealed packet. Zoe peeked out from behind my leg. He asked if I was Avery. I said yes, and my stomach dropped before I even opened the envelope. He handed it over and said I had been served. I looked down and saw the words fraud and misrepresentation printed across the first page. Zoe asked what it was. I told her it was nothing to worry about, which was exactly the kind of lie mothers tell when they are trying to keep fear out of a child's voice and out of their own. I took the papers straight to Sienna. She read the first page, then the next, and gave me that steady look lawyers say for people on the edge of panic. She said it was a scare tactic. Monica and Derek were trying to intimidate me into dropping the repayment claim. I asked, half joking and half serious, whether I was about to be arrested in front of my daughter. Sienna almost smiled. No, she said. They were alleging fraud because they wanted me to blink first. She reminded me that we would not react emotionally. We would respond cleanly, formally, and through proper channels. I went home trying to believe her, but the unease stayed under my ribs. Then, the calls started. Relatives who had barely spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions. Some texted. Some called. Some demanded to know how I could do this to family. I did not waste my energy explaining to everyone. If I cared about the person, I told the truth. They used Zoe's surgery as leverage. They made me sign while she was fighting for her life. If anyone had acted dishonestly, it was not me. Some people went quiet after that. Some chose not to believe it. I stopped caring. Then came the moment that made my hands shake. I went to pick Zoe up from school and saw Monica and Derek standing near the entrance, talking to her like they belonged there. They had never bothered showing up at her school before, which was exactly why I had not even thought to remove their access. Zoe saw me and her whole face changed. In the car, she asked me in a small voice if I had stolen money from them. She said they had called me a fraud. My grip tightened on the steering wheel so hard it hurt. I felt rage rise behind my eyes, hot and sharp. But I kept my voice steady, because that was what she needed. I told her no. I told her I had not stolen anything. I told her they were lying, and that they were never allowed to talk to her like that again. That same afternoon, I removed them from pickup lists and contact permissions. Through Sienna, I sent a formal cease and desist notice. Then I kept Zoe close for days, not smothering her, just making sure she felt safe, anchored, and protected. About a week later, there was another knock at my door. When I opened it, Monica, Derek, and Madison were all standing there like they were posing for a family portrait. Monica held a cake. Madison carried a gift bag with tissue paper and ribbon. Derek looked like a man who did not want to be there at all. They spoke softly at first, performing grief, regret, and wounded love. Monica said they had not been thinking clearly. Derek said they had all been grieving. Madison stood there looking past me into the apartment, as if she still expected the door to open for her automatically. Monica lifted the cake slightly and said they had brought something for Zoe. Then she said they missed her and had been sick over everything that had happened. I did not move aside. Monica asked if they could come in for just a minute. She said we did not have to discuss anything heavy. They only wanted to see Zoe. Zoe was not home, and Monica did not know that yet. I told her she was not there. For a second, Monica's smile slipped, then came right back. She said that was fine, that they could wait or come back later. Madison's jaw tightened. Derek glanced at Monica, as if telling her to stop circling and say what she had come to say. Monica drew in a slow breath and changed her tone. It was still soft, still polished, but there was a blade under it now. She said things had gotten out of hand. She said no one wanted this to become ugly. She said we had all already been through enough, and asked whether I really wanted to drag this into court. Then she finally got to the point. She said I needed to drop the claim and put all of it behind us. I looked straight at her and said she had used my daughter's surgery to force me to sign away my life. Then they went to Zoe's school and filled her head with lies. Monica started to speak, offended and outraged, but I cut her off. I told her there was no behind us. They did not get to show up with cake and pretend they had not done what they did. Derek's face hardened. Madison looked furious. I stayed calm and told them they had wanted paperwork and leverage. And now they had both. Then I closed the door. Not hard, not dramatic, just final. 2 days later, Sienna called. She did not waste words. She said Monica and Derek wanted to settle. I asked what they were offering. Sienna said they would sign everything back, the house and the company, and were calling it their attempt to make things right. I went quiet for a moment because the nerve of that almost impressed me. Then I told her, no. Giving back what they took was not a settlement. It was only undoing part of the damage. Sienna asked for my terms and I already knew the answer. I told her I wanted $150,000 on top of everything being signed back over. She did not argue. She just said she would send it. A few hours later, she called again. Monica was furious. Derek said I should be grateful. Madison claimed she did not understand why I was doing this. I asked what their lawyer had said. Sienna's voice sharpened a little at that. Their lawyer had reminded them what they signed. The company still owed the loan, $842,600, and because Monica and Derek had accepted personal liability when they took control, the debt did not end with the business if the business could not pay. It could reach them personally. I could picture the moment it finally landed for them, the exact second when greed stopped feeling like a victory and started feeling like a trap. The next morning, Sienna sent me a short message. They accepted. Notary on Friday. Wire confirmed. I read it twice, Not because I did not understand, but because after everything that had happened, closure still felt unreal. I looked over at Zoe, sitting at the kitchen table with cereal and a worksheet, her hair still messy from sleep, and I felt something in my chest loosen. The fight was not fully over yet, but for the first time since the accident, I knew the end was coming. Not because Monica had changed. Not because Derek had found a conscience. Not because Madison had learned anything. It was ending because paperwork mattered, and this time the paperwork was finally on my side. Friday came with gray skies and the smell of rain clinging to the air. We met at a small office that smelled like toner and lemon cleaner. Monica arrived polished as always, but she looked pale under the makeup. Derek had the face of a man who had not slept. Madison clutched her purse so tightly, it looked like the last thing in her life she still believed belonged to her. No cake this time. No soft voices. No performance of wounded family love. Sienna laid the documents out one by one. The company would return to me. The house would return to me. There would be a settlement payment of $150,000. In exchange, I would withdraw the $842,600 claim in full, and both sides would sign a mutual release. Monica picked up her pen, but her hand hovered for a second. I saw the tremor in it. Then she signed. Derek signed next, jaw tight and expression flat. Madison went last. Her eyes burned with anger, but she signed too. When the papers reached me, my hand stayed steady. I signed my name without hesitation. Sienna glanced at her phone a moment later and said the wire had come through. I did not smile. I did not thank them. I just gave a single nod because I was done giving them reactions they had not earned. That night, Zoe curled up beside me on the couch and asked what we were having for dinner, the way children do when they still believe the world can become normal again if enough ordinary things happen in a row. And for the first time in a very long time, it felt like maybe it could. Liam was still gone. Nothing about that had changed. There was no settlement in the world that could fix that absence. But Zoe was safe. The house was coming back. The company was mine again. The fear that had been pressing on my ribs for weeks finally eased just enough for me to take a full breath. It did not feel like triumph. It felt like survival, quiet and hard-won. 6 months later, Zoe and I were living in the house again. We had moved back the same week everything was signed, quickly and without any celebration. The house did not feel like a prize. It felt like somewhere we had fought to breathe again. Some nights, grief still hit me out of nowhere. I would reach for Liam's mug without thinking, or hear Zoe laugh, and for half a second expect to hear his laughter right after it. A notary stamp could return property. It could not return a husband, or a father, or the life we had before that hospital hallway split everything in two. Still, Zoe was healing. Not all at once. Not neatly. Just slowly and steadily. One night, she climbed into my lap, held my face in both hands, and asked if they could ever make us leave again. I told her no. They could not. And for the first time, I believed those words without feeling the need to check every lock in the house. The company steadied too. Not by magic. Not because some grand miracle happened. It stabilized because I knew how to do the work. I handled payroll, clients, problems, and all the boring parts that actually keep a business alive. I heard through family that Monica and Derek never really recovered the way they expected to. People found out what they had done. The hospital papers, the stunt at Zoe's school, the fraud accusations. Invitations started drying up. Smiles turned cold. Money grew tighter. Madison stopped posting glowing photos and blessed captions like they could hide the truth. Liam is still gone. That part never changes. But Zoe is safe. We are home. And every time I watch her run down the hallway, every time I hear her laugh without fear in it, I know one thing for certain. They thought they were taking everything from me in the worst moment of my life. What they really did was show me exactly who they were, then hand me the evidence to beat them with. Moving back into the house was not the joyful moment people might imagine. There were no balloons, no photos, no grand feeling of victory. We came back quietly, carrying boxes through the same front door that had once felt warm and ordinary. Now, it felt different. Familiar, but changed. Every room held two truths at once. It was home, and it was also the place where pieces of our old life still echoed. Some nights I stood in the kitchen and remembered Liam pouring coffee before work. Sometimes I reached for his mug without thinking, then froze when the silence answered back. Grief does not care about legal papers or signed settlements. It moves in when it wants, sits down where it pleases, and reminds you that what was lost cannot be restored just because the rest was returned. Zoe was healing too, but not in a straight line. Some days she laughed easily and ran through the hallway like a child who had finally remembered how to be light again. Other days she went quiet for no reason I could see, and I knew the reason anyway. Trauma does not always announce itself. Sometimes it just changes the air in a room. So, I kept things steady. Dinner at the table, homework before television, bedtime stories even on the nights when I was tired enough to cry. I did not try to force the house to feel perfect again. I only tried to make it safe. That mattered more. One evening, Zoe climbed into my lap and placed both hands on my face. She looked straight at me and asked if Monica and Derek could ever make us leave again. I told her no. I said it calmly, clearly, and this time I believed it all the way through. She studied me for a second, then relaxed into me like she had been holding that question in her body for weeks. That was the moment I understood something simple. Winning was never really about the house. It was about giving my daughter a place where fear no longer got the final word. The company did not recover overnight, but it stabilized because I knew exactly what it needed. I had never been the public face the way Liam was, but I understood the real machinery behind everything. Payroll had to be handled on time. Clients needed honest communication. Problems had to be solved instead of hidden behind polished smiles and meaningless captions. That was the difference between actually running a business and pretending to own one. Monica, Derek, and Madison had liked the image of control. They liked standing in front of the logo and acting like success belonged to them. But a company is not saved by posing in its office. It is kept alive by people who know how to do the work when things are messy, dull, and difficult. So I did the work. Quietly. Consistently. The same way Liam always had. Over time, things evened out. Employees stopped looking tense when I walked in. Clients stayed. The numbers steadied. Nothing magical happened. It was just discipline, routine, and refusing to let chaos make decisions for me. Around that same time, I started hearing things through extended family. Word had gotten out. People knew more than Monica and Derek expected them to know. They knew about the hospital papers. They knew about the lies at Zoe's school. They knew about the fraud claims and the pressure campaign. The image Monica had spent years building began to crack. Invitations became less frequent. Friendly smiles cooled. People who once admired them now looked at them differently. Money became tighter too. I heard that Madison had stopped posting cheerful pictures and glowing little updates online. Apparently, even she understood that some things cannot be covered with filters and clever captions. I did not celebrate any of that. I did not need revenge to keep unfolding in public for me to feel at peace. What mattered was simpler. Zoe was safe. The business was stable. Our life was no longer being controlled by people who treated love like leverage. That was enough. More than enough, really. After everything, peace felt far more valuable than spectacle. Liam is still gone. That is the truth sitting underneath every other truth in this story. No settlement changed that. No return deed, no restored company, no wire transfer could touch the deepest loss. There are still moments when it hits without warning. A laugh that sounds like his in my memory. A quiet morning when I expect to hear his footsteps. A decision I want to talk through with him before remembering I have to carry it alone. That part does not heal neatly. It just becomes something you learn to live beside. But the rest of our life did begin to hold together again. Zoe laughed more. She slept better. She stopped asking careful little questions that no child should have to ask. The house slowly filled with ordinary sounds again, and ordinary sounds can be a kind of miracle after enough fear. Looking back, I sometimes think Monica and Derek made one fatal mistake. They believed desperation meant blindness. They thought that, because I was terrified for my daughter, I would not understand what they were doing. They thought they were taking everything from a grieving widow who had no power left. What they did not realize was that I knew the company better than they ever would. I knew what was hidden inside the paperwork they were so eager for me to sign. They saw property, status, and control. I saw liability, debt, and the weakness in their plan. They assumed panic made me helpless. It did not. It only made me faster. In the end, they exposed themselves. Their greed was not subtle. Their cruelty was not temporary. They used a little girl's surgery as leverage and expected the story to end there. It did not. The story ended with Zoe home, safe, and growing stronger. It ended with me still standing, still working, still protecting what mattered. Maybe that is the real point of everything. Some people think power means taking what you can from someone at their lowest moment. They are wrong. Real power is surviving that moment, seeing clearly anyway, and refusing to let the people who harmed you decide how your story ends. Sometimes I think the cruelest part was not what Monica and Derek took on paper. It was what they assumed about me when they did it. They looked at a woman who had just lost her husband, a mother sitting in a hospital with her injured child down the hall, and decided I was finished. They saw grief and thought weakness. They saw urgency and thought panic. They saw signatures and believed that meant surrender. But they misunderstood everything that mattered. Yes, I was desperate. Yes, I would have done anything to get Zoe into surgery. That part was true. But desperation did not erase what I knew. It did not erase the years I spent helping Liam build that company from the inside. It did not erase my understanding of the books, the structure, the debt, and the promises buried in those documents. Monica and Derek thought they were taking a house, a company, and control of the future. What they really took was a legal obligation they did not bother to read closely enough to understand. That was their mistake, not mine. They had spent years underestimating Liam, and then they made the same mistake with me. They thought quiet meant powerless. They thought steadiness meant softness. They thought I would break in a way that made me easy to manage. Instead, I endured long enough to outlast them. When I look back now, I do not remember that hospital room as the place where I lost everything. I remember it as the place where they finally showed me, without disguise, exactly who they were. Greed stripped them bare. The masks dropped. The polished manners, the family language, the careful smiles. All of it cracked the moment they saw a chance to gain something. They used Zoe's pain as leverage and expected me to live with the shame of that forever. I do not. They are the ones who have to live with what they did. I live with grief. Yes. I live with absence, but I also live with clarity. And clarity is powerful. Once you truly see people, you stop fearing their performance. You stop mistaking appearance for character. You stop handing them pieces of yourself in the hope that one day they will become who they should have been all along. Now, when I watch Zoe move through the house, I notice small things more than big ones. The sound of her footsteps in the hallway, her cereal bowl left in the sink, her backpack dropped by the door, the way she laughs without checking anyone's face first. Those are ordinary details, but after everything, ordinary feels sacred. It means safety. It means the worst thing already happened, and somehow we are still here. Liam is not. That ache remains, and always will. Some losses do not shrink. You just grow around them. But Zoe is alive. She is healing. And our home no longer belongs to people who thought love could be used as a bargaining chip. The company is steady again because it is being run by people who care about the work more than the image. Our life is quieter now, and I am grateful for that. Quiet used to seem boring. Now I know it can be a kind of peace you earn. I still hear things now and then about Monica, Derek, and Madison. Their world never quite went back to what it was. Reputations are fragile when the truth finally reaches the people who matter. But I do not build my days around what became of them. I build my days around what Zoe and I still have. A home, stability, routine, the chance to keep going. Maybe that is the real ending here. Not revenge. Not victory in some dramatic, shining sense. Just survival with dignity. Survival with memory. Survival without letting cruel people decide the final shape of your life. They thought they had chosen the ending for me in that hospital room. They were wrong. The ending belongs to us. Zoe safe. Me standing. Liam loved and remembered. And a future that, while different from the one I once imagined, is still ours to live. That is enough. More than enough.